Welcome to The Beat. I'm Ari Melber, and here's what we're seeing in America right now. Summer 2020 is on its way to ending, much as this summer began. More protests over systemic racism in the wake of more controversial police shootings of, yes, black men. The breaking news today is police arresting a 17-year-old for homicide who opened fire, killing 2 people, injuring a third near a gas station in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Amidst what have been tense but largely peaceful protests over the Sunday shooting, where Wisconsin police approached Jacob Blake, an African-American man, and they shot him several times in the back. It was high alert overnight, a man openly carrying a large gun. Some protesters you see here chasing him. He then discharged his weapon multiple times at those giving chase. The footage appears to show one man shot, then falling to the ground. Now, this will be paused before that actual shot. That's part of our standards. Now, police are also using, in those protests, armored vehicles, tear gas, and rubber bullets on the demonstrators. Quite a scene. Now, that unrest, a state police shooting of a black man, allegedly without cause, then peaceful protests met with allegedly anti-black violence. That, obviously, right now is all playing out against the backdrop of this Republican convention, now half over, and trafficking in both suburban fear, as well as appeals to basically the way Donald Trump wants people to view criminal justice. Now, that included last night, for example, a diverse speaking roster, as well as a controversial made-for-TV pardon. And think about it like this. State attorneys general do not usually get primetime speaking slots at either party's convention, but the RNC went out of its way to feature Kentucky's AG, who tried to defend Trump policies on criminal justice, and then brought up another incident of an unarmed, innocent black American killed by police, Breonna Taylor, already prompting outrage and accusations of hypocrisy because her case, of course, has not yet resulted in any arrests for any offense, let alone the murder charges many are demanding.
It was General Dwight Eisenhower, a future Republican president, who said democracy is a system that recognizes the equality of humans before the law. Whether you are the family of Breonna Taylor or David Dorn, these are the ideals that will heal our nation's wounds.
No. Breonna Taylor's family does not agree with that. I want you to keep that in mind. If you listen to them, as we have, because we've been covering their public calls for justice on this program, they have not been talking about, quote, ideals or thoughts and prayers, but rather they and their civil rights representatives and attorneys have been demanding tangible action towards what they see as justice in their case. I tell you that tonight because it is similar to what the protesters are demanding in the new Blake case in Wisconsin before it reached this new fever pitch, before that anti-violence effort was met with new violence in America. Now, amidst all these stories, the NBA formally postponing its playoff games tonight over this Blake shooting. President Trump says he'll send federal law enforcement and the National Guard to Kenosha, Wisconsin. And we also want you to know, in terms of everything going on, there's a new hurricane, Laura. It's now a Category 4. It's approaching Texas and Louisiana. We're keeping our eye on that with public safety information for you later this hour. Right now, we begin our broadcast joined by the leader of the Congressional Black Caucus and a longtime leader on civil rights policy, Congresswoman Karen Bass, as well as Rutgers professor Brittany Cooper. Congresswoman, when you look at both the original shooting in Wisconsin and the reception to those protests, which are fundamentally against police violence, what do you see in America tonight?
Well, I see despair. I see absolute despair because I think people in the communities just ask themselves, how many times do we have to endure this? But I also have to mention Trayford Pellerin because he was killed in Louisiana. He was shot 11 times in his back, and it was almost within hours of the Blake shooting. And so at some point, you just have to say when. And you know, Ari, that we passed the legislation in the House that has been languishing in the Senate. Hopefully, this might create some new energy over in the Senate to take up our bill.
Professor?
I'm teeming with rage, Ari. There's only so much a people can take before they absolutely break. And we have watched the RNC stoke these fears, and then people act surprised when you then see white men take to the streets and engage in these acts of violence. But what we have been watching is the president and his cronies set the emotional and political stage for this kind of violence to occur. Let's not forget on the first night of the convention that we had a white couple who had been brandishing guns at protesters. And so then in Wisconsin last night, we have this 17-year-old kid who finished the threat that those white people started in St. Louis, which was that we will bring out our guns and we will shoot you for exercising your right to peacefully protest. And this kind of white rage, let's remember who's actually being violent here. It isn't the protesters standing up for their rights. It is people who are terrorizing them. They are the people who have Jacob Blake fighting to get back to health. And now we've got 2 people dead. And look, let me say this, and let me be very frank. White people really have to reckon with what it means that a 17-year-old kid, a kid who isn't even able to vote yet, feels like his rage is such that he can take somebody's life simply because they are asking to be treated with dignity and respect. Why are people who are not yet fully adults that are this angry and exercising whiteness in the public square in this way? It disturbs my soul. It should disturb us all. And I'm with these protesters who are saying, we're not going to have this anymore. We're going to keep fighting for this to change.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.